Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good evening to everyone. Thank you for being with me tonight. I will talk about one of the most important thing and one of the most common thing happens to postgraduate students, which is regarding to writing the thesis. Tonight, I'm going to talk about 7 tips. I'm going to share about the 7 tips on how to restart your thesis writing even when you feel so stuck about it, you don't even want to look at your thesis anymore. Alright, what are those 7 tips? The first one is you have to do at least one other things aside of writing your thesis. When people get stuck in writing thesis, means to say that at this point they have been in a mode where they are in a blank state, or what we call it as writer's block. So the first thing that you should do is you try to do something else aside of writing your thesis. You leave it first for a while. You do one thing. For example, you go jogging, you take shower, or for Muslim, you might want to pray for 2 raka'ats, or you want to recite Quran, 1 surah, or you can call your parents, call your friends, or you can do some meditation. Whatever it is, choose only one thing to do which you think can help you to clarify your mind. Because when you have the clarity of mind, after that you can start thinking clearly about your writing project. Alright, so this is the first tip. The second tips is to reset your mind. After you do one thing which is not related to your thesis but can help you to clear your mind, the second step is for you to reset your mind. Alright, instead of thinking how hard the writing of thesis is, you can think positive things. For example, think of what benefits you get when you have finished your thesis. For example, you are able to graduate, you are able to go back to your working environment, and so many other things that you can think of when you have finished your thesis. So when you think something rewarding from completing your thesis, you are actually training your mind, training your brain to think of ways to help you to accomplish finishing writing the thesis. Because our brain is, normally reacting to what we ask them. For example, if you ask yourself, why am I stuck in writing this thesis? Your brain will try to get an answer to that. But if you ask your brain, if you ask yourself, how can I expedite the writing of my thesis? What can I do to help me, to help myself to write this thesis faster? Then you will find the answer. Your brain will try to find the answer. So you try to reset your mind. Instead of thinking how hard writing a thesis is, you can think on what are the rewards or what are the benefits of you finishing the thesis. So that's the second tips. And of course, when you have this resetting your mind, you are freeing your mind from whatever you fear in writing your thesis. For example, writer's block in writing a thesis may not be caused by some kind of laziness or anything related to you don't want to write your thesis. The things that really happening in your brain or in your mind is that you have so many fears when you write the thesis. One of my coaches, she said to me, she doesn't understand why is it so hard for her to write her thesis. It's like that she is very scared to write it. Yes, you are very scared to write it because you have some perception in your mind. For example, you are thinking, are you good enough to write this thesis? Are you what are your reviewer or your readers will think about you when you write this way? So when you try to put that perception in your mind, you are actually getting yourself into a fear state where you judge yourself before you even write. Okay, so the second thing which is important is to reset your mind. You have to free your mind from any judgment to yourself. Just believe that you can write this thesis if you really plan it, which I'm going to share with you the third tips on how you are going to plan your thesis writing when you feel stuck. Alright, the first tip just now, do something else first, one thing which is not related to your thesis writing first, to help you to get the clarity of mind. Second, you reset your mind from fear to believing that you can write your thesis if you really focus on it and you have the strategy to write it. And the third tips is to chunk your big writing tasks into smaller ones. One of the most common mistakes made by postgraduate students when writing the thesis is that the perception or believing that they need to write the thesis all out. Actually, you can write it in smaller tasks. For example, you chunk your thesis writing into several smaller tasks. For example, introduction section and literature review section. After that, methodology, followed by results and discussion, and then conclusion. Even the introduction section, you can further divide it into smaller section. This is what I always remind postgraduate students and always share about this, whereby you must chunk your thesis writing or journal article writing into smaller tasks which is more manageable for you. For example, think about something that you can sit down for 25 minutes and write about it until it finished. Alright? For example, for introduction section, you can further divide it into smaller tasks on the background of study, problem statement, objective, and other component of introduction. Alright, and in literature review, you can also further divide your writing task into several subheadings or subtopics per day, so that you don't feel overwhelmed about the writing the whole chapter or the whole thesis. So chunk your work, the bigger writing goals, the bigger thesis writing goals into smaller tasks, which is more manageable for you. Alright, so by this way, you are actually training your brain that you can do it. You can write the thesis, you can finish the thesis writing because it's more manageable for you. Alright, the fourth tips, schedule your day. Okay, when you already plan your thesis writing by chunking them into smaller tasks, and of course you make timeline for each of the writing task, you schedule your day. Okay, if you ever heard about Pomodoro techniques, whereby you only use 25 minutes of your schedule for writing each section of your thesis or any work that you want to do. For example, if in one day you have 8 hours and to spend on thesis writing, you chunk it further into 25 minutes of task. After 25 minutes, your timer will ring and you will stop doing it, and then you take a break for a while, and then you come back for another 25 minutes. Alright, so when you do that, you feel the writing task can be done in a more fresher perspective. Alright, and then remember as well to schedule not only your writing task but also your rest. Okay, and the rest, when you rest, you don't look at your phone. For example, you still have 4 hours of writing target for the day. During the 5 minutes break, don't look at your phone, don't scroll onto social media, because you will tend to, have longer screen time, longer rest compared to what you actually need. Alright, remember, you have to focus on your writing. And then the fifth tips is when you write, you have to write freely. This is also one of the most common thing that I restate over and over again every time I advise students or my thesis coaches in writing the thesis. When you write, you just write. You don't judge yourself. You don't judge anyone else who you think will judge your writing. You just want to write it quickly so that you get the first draft. When you have your first draft ready, after that will come the editing stage, which is where you can utilize your your perfectionism, I would say, in perfecting your thesis. When you write, just write it quickly. You want to finish the section that you aim for the day, just write it. Don't edit it. Okay, you just write and write and write until you finish the section. Remember, the process of thesis writing is beginning to be a little bit easier if you have finished your first draft. Okay, the target is you get your full first draft, and then we will go to tips number 6, which is when you edit fiercely. You truly edit your thesis until you are satisfied with the outcome. Of course, you have to allocate time frame for editing, because writing a thesis is something very magical, I would say. Even when you already submit your thesis, you already make a hard bind of your thesis, sometimes you find 1 or 2 small error in your thesis. So you can never be perfect at this stage. The most important thing is for your thesis draft ready in terms of its content, and people can read it easily, can understand what you are trying to convey in your thesis. You have to allocate time for revision. Okay, which comes to the 7th tips for tonight, which is you have to consult your thesis writing mentor regularly. Meaning to say that they could be your supervisor, your co-supervisor, or your lab mates, or anyone who can help you to see the general ideas and flow of your thesis, so that you have another perspective from the reader on your thesis. Okay, so let me just recap what are the 7 tips on how to restart writing your thesis when you feel stuck. You don't even want to look at your thesis anymore. The first tips is to do something else first, which is not related to your thesis, which can help you get the clarity of mind. For example, you go jogging and so on. Second tips is to reset your mind, free your mind from the fear of judgment from others. Just believe that you can finish writing your thesis if you really focus and you have the strategy in writing it. And the second thing is, instead of thinking how hard writing a thesis is, you can think of what rewards or benefits that you can get if you finish your thesis. The third tips is to chunk your thesis writing work into smaller goals. As has been mentioned just now, you can chunk it based on chapters, and the chapters can even be divided into smaller writing goals, which you can finish in 25 minutes of writing session. The next tips is to schedule your day. You use Pomodoro technique. This is one of the techniques that you can use, which I find is very useful in helping many people in scheduling their writing tasks. And number 5, when you write, you want to write freely, write quickly, and remember the target is to get the first draft ready. Full first draft ready. The 6th tips number 6, when you edit fiercely, but don't forget to have a timeline or a deadline for the editing stage, so you have ample time to get feedbacks from your thesis writing mentors, for example, your supervisors and your co-supervisors, so that when they give feedback to you, you can revise your thesis and make it better. So that's all my sharing for tonight. I hope if you find this video useful, you can share it to your friends who might need some tips on restarting their thesis writing. And I hope you enjoy this video. Thank you very much. See you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.